You and I and Senator John Kane, we are all members of the newly created Pennsylvania Broadband Development Authority. The authority is housed under your department, and we are tasked at directing this massive influx of federal taxpayer dollars to the purpose of closing our digital divide. And let me be clear, federal, state, or local tax dollars, those dollars all come out of the same wallet. And so the state has a huge opportunity, but we also have some challenges in how we go about stretching every one of those hard-earned dollars to address the problem of internet connectivity. The department is engaging in developing that state broadband plan, which is the critical component to be eligible for additional funding beyond the $100 million that every state is going to receive from the federal government. So if you could give me an update on where we stand in that process, and have any broadband entities that have experience in actually deploying high-speed internet been engaged in the drafting of this preliminary plan?
So to answer your second question first is we will absolutely be reaching out and making sure that we're bringing all the partners in for conversations and making sure that their voices are heard as well as our other stakeholders. We're very excited, as you know, with the opportunity with the authority. I think we want to make sure that we're going to get much more than $100 million, the base of what we're looking at. But it also is important about the state plan. We want to make sure that we're bringing all of our agencies together. We make sure that we're bringing all the stakeholders together and the legislature, and we're making sure that we're having one conversation about broadband access. This is something that affects our schools, as you know. It affects businesses. We see this and hear about it as one of the challenges after workforce that's really hindering some business. E-commerce suffers. So, you know, to the point, we're looking forward to moving forward with this. We're looking forward to the map that we'll be putting together with professionals to put that and experts to put that together to make sure we have a strong handle of what the number and the need actually is. We hear anywhere from 500,000 to 2.3 million. That's a huge gap, and we want to make sure that we're doing something about that.
Thank you. And I think it's really important that we talk to the people who actually deploy the service so that we're effective in using those taxpayer dollars. I'd like to switch gears just a bit. While your agency is not the sole entity in charge of all of the various grants and tax credit programs, the intent of a lot of these programs fits within your mission statement to, and I quote, encourage the shared prosperity of all Pennsylvanians by supporting good stewardship and sustainable development initiatives across our Commonwealth. One of the challenges that I've seen over the last several years, and especially throughout the pandemic, is the massive amount of funding going out to entities to address various issues. There have been troubling reports from the Independent Fiscal Office on the effectiveness of various state grant programs and tax credits. We've seen many egregious examples in the media over the last several years. The state paid the organizers of the Democratic National Committee $10 million for their convention in Philadelphia. After the convention, approximately $1 million was paid out in bonuses to staffers. To that end, I've introduced legislation to address these troubling instances of where taxpayer dollars are used for economic development incentives, but are either abused or misused in the process. So right now, the taxpayer in the state, they have no remedy. What is your stance on better safeguards for these taxpayer dollars for economic development projects?
Sure. Thank you for that question. We take that very seriously. The compliance and the follow-up, making sure that those grants and that money is being used wisely and efficiently. We have a compliance division that makes sure that that's happening. Kevin oversees that office, and we make sure that we have the safeguards in place. We never want $1 to be misused, a taxpayer dollar. We are very cognizant of that. My predecessor, Secretary Davin, made that very clear to staff that we want the safeguards in place, and we've done that.
So I have Senate Bill 250. It would impose a prohibition on bonuses being paid out using Commonwealth funds, as well as imposing full clawback on state funding if it is not used for its intended purpose. Do you or the department have any stance on curbing abuse in state grant programs?
We'd obviously agree on making sure that we're having conversations about that. We want to curb all abuse. We don't want to see any $1 going out the door that isn't being used to benefit Pennsylvania.
I appreciate that. I'd also like to point out that the legislation that created the Pennsylvania Broadband Development Authority includes a clawback provision that can be audited by the Auditor General. If any of the funding is not used to deploy high-speed internet to areas that are unserved or underserved, we can claw it back. So thank you, Acting Secretary Weaver. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.